Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. Welcome to this long anticipated live stream. Actually, like if we are to look back when we started working on this new development, we're probably counting back more than 2 years. And finally, after many trials and tribulations, we are ready. We are ready to go live, and we are ready to, show you what we've been cooking. The product today that we're going to show you wouldn't have been possible without contribution of many professionals and people, primarily here in vicinity of Los Angeles, with whom I'm regularly in contact with, many colorists that you know and that you don't know as well, and people who are working daily 8 to 10 hours trying to deliver better shows, trying to with every new job improve the quality of their output, deliver better results to their clients, achieve the impossible sometimes. And these tools have been really created with them in mind, or they've been created with the feedback that we got from them, or requests we got from them. And so here we are, where today I'm going to show you everything and step by step. But before I begin, I want to just invite you to say hello in the chat and say hi, where are you from? I would love to see who's joining us today, who's with us. Let's have a look. Hello from Germany, Tanyu, good to see you. Oh my God, Montevideo, very good. Hi Juan, hello. Ricky from Puerto Rico, hey Ricky. And Gary from Atlanta, excellent, good to see you guys. Then we have Antonio from Miami. Excellent, good to see you. Siegfriedo from Sicily, Dimitro, hello. Cooking with Grandma from Haifa. Hope you guys are all right. Hey, guys, Seattle and Martin, Hong Kong. Justinian. Oh, my God. Hey, Justinian. Thank you so much for that message about fish tank. I love it. I'm going to get back to you on it. I can't believe, that article you sent me was wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Edgar. Hello, Bill. Cape Cod. Oh, beautiful. Hello. Kyle. Kyle from just around the corner. Hello, Zach. Hello, Raphael. And Genova. Oh my God, more Italy. And Orlando. hello. Good to see you. Lorenzo is with us. Wonderful. And Vicky from India and Rez from Famber. My God, I love it. I love it when we get together like this, it's absolutely fantastic. So let me just kind of give you a little bit of what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to give you a little bit of explanation of the tools that we got, and I'm going to show you then just an overview to how we'll be using them. Actually, I'm going to also show you one tool at a time as well, how they work, and then we're going to see how to put them together and the results that we're going to be getting. I'm just going to be using a very simple, example. So nothing really complicated. I'm going to try to keep it very simple for you to see what happens and how it works. Also, just so you know, we are running at the moment at Color Training the Look Academy, and we are going to be diving deeper into these tools at the Look Academy, where we're going to be doing some really interesting practical exercises. But in any case, let me start. Let me start now with a basically. Maybe I'm gonna go on first and just start with what it is. So we have basically a set of plugins. Okay, so what we did is we've actually gone in a complete opposite to kind of what has been how the industry has been working. There is lots of plugins at the moment out there that you kind of put them in the kind of this magical box that give you these results. But when we spoke to professional colorists, we realized this is not really how they work. And I totally support this. I also personally don't work like this. I don't want to have something that's just going to give me some magic result. I really like to have controls over every step of the process. I like to build my own node trees. And this is something that, you know, is a mantra that I've heard for the last few years, my node tree. I like to use node tree, right? So we really wanted to give you all these elements separately so that you can combine them and you can build them so that they work for you. So basically what we did, and there is some really interesting advantages in that. Okay, but the first thing that we realized what was really stopping us to do that was the fact that we really needed to connect those tools to work together. Okay, so first of all, what these tools are. So we have here a plugin called GrainLab 3.0, an absolute, you know, amazing tool. Then we have a color management tools called INODE, ONODE, that are basically our attempt to make color management as simple as possible. We have an upgraded version of Look Designer. We have a new plugin called PrintLab. We're going to see what it does. Then we have another plugin called HaloLab that you've seen, but you see now we have a version 2, extremely, you know, different and updated version than the last one. And then we have a plugin we've never seen before. It's called LensLab. Okay. So let me kind of, you know, by the way, an easiest way, once you install the plugins, you enter only one license for all of the plugins, and then you just enter in your library in a search CP, which stands for Colourpro, and then all these plugins then become available to you. So it's then very easy to see them, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to explain to you the extremely interesting color management, and this color management has been developed by no one less than Josh Pines, who actually has kind of been working independently, you know, trying to solve this problem. And then when we came to him and we explained to him what we're trying to do, it was absolutely fantastic. Basically, let me explain you what the thing is. When we are color grading, we you know, usually have a camera sources that have, I don't know, certain amount of stops. And so far, most color grading spaces, like let's say DaVinci Wide Gamut or Arilog C or ACES CCT, all those encoding systems had you know, a decent amount of stops. However, then Alexa 35 came out and that all changed. Suddenly there was a camera on the market that had more stops of dynamic range than actual color grading space. So if you want to think about it, DaVinci Wide Gamut has got 9.5 stops of dynamic range above mid-gray, where about Alexa can do well over 11 stops. Okay, so what we did is then we said we need higher dynamic range color grading space, but we can't use Arilog C4 because the mid-gray is too low. And when the mid-gray is too low, our controls don't behave the way we like it, because when the mid-gray is so low, our lift is basically affecting too much the skin tone, for example, gamma's behaving completely different, and the whole kind of system, the whole grading can starts a little bit falling apart. It's very difficult to use that. So, so we needed a really color space for colorists, and I'm going to make a definitely separate training, you know, just about this color space, which basically is going to maintain mid-gray at 400, which is what is necessary for us to keep basically operating in the same way like we've been operating so far, but that is going to give us 12 stops of dynamic range, okay? Or more than 11, which is what we have at the moment with ARRI 35 or Alexa 35. Okay, so that answer to that question is the new, completely new color space called JP Log 2. Okay, so I'm just going to basically show you the way how it works. What you do is you just drop this, you know, plugin called INODE, and all you're going to have is just one selection. Okay, now let's say if we compare this, for example, with a color space transform, and then you look at the color space transform, there's this setting, this gamma, then tone mapping. Should I use custom input, custom adaptation, gamut mapping, forward? You see, there is 1 million settings, right? And actually it doesn't have to be that way. We can really automate it. You know, I'm big into automation. I love to kind of, you know, do and get all these boring tasks of setting, you know, the right setting out of the way. So what we did is we actually build, you know, a color management that does all of this for you. So all you do is you just select what camera you're using. In my case, I'm using something that's shot with Blackmagic camera. And everything else, all the other settings are taken care of, okay? And we are now outputting here JP Log 2. okay, which has 12 stops of dynamic range. Okay, another very interesting characteristic of JPlog2 is that it gives to every stop the same amount of code values. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that every stop is 50 code values. And that's a super important once I start working with offset, because I want my offset to behave like exposure does. You know, some of my colleagues have, for example, been grading with DaVinci Wide Gamut that doesn't have that characteristic. So what they had to do is they have to convert the node to be linear just to have a control that's something similar to exposure. No need to do that with the color spaces that are designed for color grading, where this, you know, characteristic of same code value per stop is actually there. Okay? Then what you do, you close with ONODE, okay, output node, right? And then again, we wanted to make it a little bit simpler for you. So what we did is we said, well, there are three options you have. You have options to output to an SDR screen. There is option to output an HDR screen, or there is an option to output to any scene referred space. So you basically have every possible option out there. And because we are working in a color space that is overarching, that is bigger than the actual, you know, color spaces, other color management color spaces like ACES, like ARRI, like DaVinci Wide Gamut, and so on, we can actually integrate all of those color spaces into ours. So we can just wrap ourselves around it. So you can still be like completely ACES compliant, for example, yet be grading in much nicer color space for grading. So I'm going to show you a little bit more like what it means. Like if I just start basically with for example, like an SDR output of which is I selected now. 1 second, let me just go to ACES 1. Okay, now have a look. Okay, here is basically the same clip using ACES transform, right? I'm going from Blackmagic to ACES CCT, right? I'm going to actually use the reference compress of 1.3 like this. And then I'm going to output from ACES CCT to ACES NO9. And what I'm getting here, oh, because I have here this little kind of, you know, CDL I applied, what I'm getting is absolutely identical result. Okay, there is no difference. All right. Why is there no difference? Is because we are able to completely, fully, you know, build ourselves in ACES because we are bigger than ACES. And also we use the same gamut like ACES, which is the AP1. So basically like the ACES CCT, we use the same gamut. All right, so now what's really interesting, let's say you want to start working in ACES 2.0. It's out. Maybe like it's taking a little bit now for everybody to adopt it, but now you can actually start using ACES 2.0 today. And what you do is you just go and you select, hey, here is a Rex NO9 ACES 2. And look, you get completely different result, completely different output. And this is the biggest advantage of ACES 2.0. I really, really love these, you know, new kind of ODTs from ACES. You see with a little CDL, I actually get absolutely beautiful results. Okay, so this is like a kind of, you know, just an example to how now color management is not just a necessity, not just something that's going to convert my images, but actually it's becoming also a creative tool. It's a big part of look design, because just by you choosing whether you're going to be working, for example, in ACES ODT or ACES 2 ODT, you're converting your look so much and doing a lot of work that normally you would have to do with a lot of dials and questionably not even do such a great job because somebody has spent years tweaking and improving the ODTs for ACES 2.0 for you so that you can have a benefit of it, right? Absolutely wonderful. But we're not going to stop there. We're not going to stop there. How about if I introduce you to the famous Locon? Many colorists and many cinematographers especially have fallen in love with the Locon from Josh Pines. This is part of that kind of lookup tables that were supplied with Sony Venice. Now you can use it with any camera. And why is it really good? Why people like it is because with Locon, I have a much better flexibility to build my look just using a CDL. So look at it, for example, how beautifully this is looking, right? And for example, this is DaVinci's 709. Now look at the difference. Look, you know, like how I have a much nicer control over the image. And, you know, especially like the aesthetic today of grading has gone from very crushed images. We like to see detail in the shadow, especially when we work in HDR. So now you have that, you know, another, I would say, just a creative tool that is going to allow you to work really, really nicely. All right. Then we included another profile from Josh Pines, which is called 7525. It's absolutely wonderful. It's kind of very what we call print film like. It's not that it has some of his magic there. You know, one profile that probably you know, in one way or another has been used in many movies. You know, it's a classic, you know, Josh Pines output profile. Right? Then I can go and say, hey, no, give me just an Arilog C. I love Arilog C, right? I can still do that. Look, I can now output in Arilog C. But how about if I was to go for Arilog C4? And now you can. Why? Because the dynamic range of our grading space is bigger than log C4. And now, you know, like probably, you know, to me, this is one of the most sophisticated ODTs out there. You know, what Harold Brandl and his team did is absolutely wonderful. And, you know, so far we were never really able to take advantage of it because we had to grade in log C4 and we couldn't. Now we can. Now we can actually, you know, really grade in a nice color space, right? You know, that behaves properly and still be able to take the full advantage of Arilog C for color science, okay? Then we have, you know, also we can emulate just the DaVinci Resolve color management, you know, or we can go to standard 709 and so on and so on and so on. So you basically get the idea. Like you have like a full control over it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go with Arilog C4 simply because I feel like this is just something that probably is going to work the best for my image here. So I just want to give you like a little bit of a kind of an example to what really happens here. So look, if I was to show you, like this is kind of my image that I get from straight using Blackmagic combined with Arilog C4 through JPlog2. This is Resolve's RCM2 and this is ACES 0.1. And look at what a dramatic difference this is. Look how beautifully you can now actually go and affect and grade your images. It's just absolutely wonderful. Now, the best thing of all, if you start moving your offset, you're going to get perfect exposure, you know, adjustment, no need to go linear or anything like that. The controls behave like the way you used to with like a beautiful precision, right? You can actually go and, you know, really nicely move, you know, your lift gamma again around, you know, without like a fear that things are going to jump or go crazy. And it's just such a pleasure actually to work, you know, in this way. So yeah, I really, you know, cannot like tell you how important this step was, because what we're going to do next is we're not going to work just with color. We're going to work with texture, and the texture is the next frontier in color grading. We have kind of mastered everything we can do with color. Trust me, there is 1 zillion tools on DCTLs and new tools in DaVinci and this and that. There is nothing that you can imagine that you can't do with color already. But where you as a colorist are going to have a foot forward, where you're going to be able to give your clients something that some other colorists maybe not be able to do, is when you start working with texture. And there has never been more important to work with texture than today, simply because people watch TV more than cinema, you know, and the TV screen is glossy, right? No texture on it. The digital cameras are so clean, no texture on them. Yet we need texture. We need it. There is a big part of our, you know, visual cortex there. Our reaction to texture is significant. And including texture as a part of your visual language is just so important. Now, certainly, we use texture already. People shoot still on film. If you think about it, there's a whole film revival, primarily because of that lovely texture we get out of the film, right? The second thing that's happening is we love old and vintage lenses and so on. So we love filtration. We love certain things. So there is a lot of, like, you know, things out there, but we really wanted to build you something that's going to stand out, that's going to improve every step of the texture process. Okay? So basically, I've now, like, I'm now gonna go and show you a little bit in step by step, you know, what other, you know, tools we have, so that you can see, like, slowly like, you know, what we actually built. Okay, let me actually start with the tools that we haven't had so far. You know, we never had anything which is like this, which is called Lens Lab. Okay, so what I got here is I got just a standard, again, you know, shot for our comparison, where I went, you know, from Blackmagic to 709. So this is what I would get. You know, I just applied a little, like, you know, CDL to it, you know, so this is the look, right? And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go and first of all, you know, disable, you know, this Lens Lab. What I do is I just sandwich it between nodes of, you know, JPlog2. Okay, and here I'm using an output again, which is an Arilog C4. Okay, so let's go now. So first of all, what you're going to see here is the setting for camera selection. So really, like, this is your grading color space, and you can only select one because these tools will not convert your color. They will just need to know what color you're using. So because I'm using JPlog2, this is what's going to be, but any other color space is absolutely, you know, available to you, and you just select that, and what's the same is in and out. Then you have presets. We have included just a few presets. There will be more presets coming here, and there is a code to that presets. I'm going to publish a little PDF that's going to explain what this code means, but in short, S stands for spherical lenses, V stands for vintage lenses, A stands for anamorphic lenses. Okay, so what we do now is then we say, okay, fine. Let's go now and basically let me just kind of switch everything off so that you can first see, like, you know, what each one of these steps is doing, and then you're going to really be able to understand, you know, what a wonderful, you know, piece of, you know, software this is. Okay, so let's go now first with the modulation transfer function. We had modulation transfer function. It's nothing, you know, new, crazy, but what we did differently this time is we have given you option to create a gradual fall off. Okay, because we realize the real lenses don't just have from one moment to another just the frequency drops off. No, it has like a soft knee, like it goes slowly falling off, and then it starts basically doing it more. Now let me show you basically how it works. I'm going to zoom in heavily so that you guys can see, you know, what's happening. So look, I'm going to enable the modulation transfer function. Let me just show it like this. I know we're on YouTube and stuff, but you know, I'm going to try to be I'm going to try to show as good as I can, right? So I'm going to now basically go and say, now I want the highest frequency to disappear the most. Then I want a 90 line per millimeter to go a little bit less, and then 60 like this. So basically, you see what I'm doing is I'm kind of creating a little fall off. And look what happens with the skin. Look at how the skin detail is now basically just being shaved off. And that's why people love, you know, lenses, right? That's why the glass is so important, because it does this work for you. It kind of does a little beauty pass for you already. And that's really what we want. But now, right, I can control it. And by the way, I can also go in the opposite direction. I can say, well, you know, maybe I had like a lens or shot that was a little soft. I can increase the kind of the frequency, right? So in my case, no, I'm going to stick with a kind of, you know, just like a little bit softer fall off. So now basically I have started, you know, my first step of the process. You know, I'm going to just get rid of some of those high frequencies, improve the skin, you know, basically reproduction, right? But nothing really goes out of focus. You also have to understand we're perfectly in focus. You see our eyes and everything. We're just working on the frequency level. This is a Fourier, okay? The next thing that happens is a lens tint. And this is such an interesting effect, okay? You can't really recreate it using left gamma gain because it's not linear. It works differently. It's a part of the, you know, material that glass is made from. And, you know, it's not like it filters light differently. So it's not like just you opening some kind of, you know, left gamma gain control or curve controls. You can't do it. So we really emulated it, like, you know, to give you like what really happens with a response curve. So you can choose, let's say, for example, from warm, right? Or you can go magenta, right? Or you could go cyan, right? Or you could go, for example, green. I'm going to stick with green. You see, like, it's nice, you know, and that gives just a little, like, a touch to the overall, you know, kind of color of your show. Very, very subtle, but, you know, has this beautiful effect. You know, somehow, you know, it really, like, kind of, you know, helps, you know, with the overall blend and so on, right? Then we have a lens distortion. Now, behind this two parameters, there is a whole range of different things that are happening. You know, there are so many complicated things that are happening inside the lens, like refraction, aberration, chromatic aberration, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so instead of us giving you like 1 million parameters, we said, okay, let's make it simple for you, right? So you just select basically what, you know, kind of lens. I'm going to, let's say, anamorphic, and then you set the focal length. And basically works like this. The wider the lens usually, right, the more, you know, distortion you're going to see. And you can actually then also control the amount of that distortion, okay? So you are going to see that there is like a little bit of a kind of, you know, on the edges, you'll see the chromatic aberration happening and so on. There is a lots of things, you know, going on. We've been basically, you know, using original, you know, lens tests and have been matching, you know, that, you know, distortion that you get. And then, you know, like with 77 millimeters, a little bit less, with 35 millimeter, a little bit more. I'm going to, let's say, use 35 millimeter. But however, be careful, because this setting does change the little bit, you know, your image, right? You know, it really like a, you know, has a like a, you know, geometrical effect. Sometimes we like it, right? You want it, but just so you need to be aware of it, right? You'll never get like anything like, you know, edges on around it, but, you know, so the image is gonna change slightly framing than what it is. And then we have the vignette effect. Now, sure, we have power windows, but they're not the same. You see, like a lens vignette again has got a very interesting property. And basically with that, you know, we've kind of, you know, added just a little bit more of an effect like this. So there we go. So this is basically, look, this is just the lens without width, without width. Huge impact. Big, big, big difference. Okay. And all I didn't even touch the color. I only worked with the properties of optical, you know, changes that happen inside, you know, a lens. You know, I really, that's all it is. And now you see why, you know, there is a fight around, you know, vintage lenses, these lenses, you know, anamorphic, not anamorphic. Why filmmakers, cinematographers prefer working with good glass is because you get this wonderful effect. And what's really now cool for you? Well, you know, you don't have to actually always, you know, have to have a great lens, you know, and as you probably know, not everybody's got a budget for that. So yeah, it's actually, you know, a really, really interesting thing. Let me just show you. This is the standard DaVinci. Look, this is standard DaVinci. This is here. Oops, sorry. This is my, you know, just a lens effect. Standard DaVinci, just a lens effect. Absolutely beautiful. Okay. All right. Now we're going to move to the next part, which is Grain Lab, that I know all of you have been asking and waiting for. And, you know, it's here now. Okay. It's here. So basically, let me show you this. I'm going to just, you know, for comparison reasons, start with the standard DaVinci processing. So what I have here is just a little CDL. Then I have here color space transform like I did previously. And then I applied a film grain, which is fantastic, actually, you know. I've been using this film grain so much, right? And I actually never thought there's anything wrong with it. You know, what's wrong with this film grain? Nothing. It actually looks really like a film grain. Well, until I haven't seen better. Okay. And then I started realizing, oh, actually, you know, there is a little bit more to texture and grain than just applying film grain. Okay. Let me explain to you a little bit more into detail what it is. So I'm going to go again and just disable everything here so that you see what's happening. And then I'm going to disable the 3D grain and flicker and weaver. So I'm going to just basically start with everything again. So again, here you have your color space. Here you have your presets. B stands for blend. N stands for negative, P stands for print, and the number next to it means intensity, overall intensity of the grain. The next two numbers explain what happens in high frequencies and low frequencies, and the next number tells you if you have any flicker or if you have any weaver effect applied to it as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do now first is I'm going to say, okay, let me actually start with negative grain. Okay, just a negative grain. And as you can tell, it's extremely fine. Look, like I'm trying to kind of actually show you this on a Zoom, which is always a challenge. I was wondering how that's going to work, but when you guys download the plugins yourself, you're going to be able to play with it as well and see. So you see, one thing which is really interesting about the negative grain is it has a very fine texture. Okay. However, what we did is we left you a wide variety of options. You can go from something which is super coarse, like 8mm, to something that's so fine, like 65mm, that you will hardly going to be able to see it, right? Okay. However, there are projects that need grain, that need texture, but they don't want to look old. They don't need to look like it's shot in 70s, right? But they still need texture. And there is a technique in film scanning that existed for a long time, which is called oversampling. Okay, so this is oversampling. What oversampling does, it takes the same frame and scans it more than once, usually 3 times, and then that frame gets blended, and then when it gets blended, you get lower signal to noise ratio. What you actually do is you get perceptually less or more detail, less granularity, and it kind of oversampling, reduces the visible grain. Okay, so let me show you what's really interesting. So look, this is now my scopes, and if I was just now to enable negative grain with oversampling, you can certainly see that on my waveform everything is changing, right? Yet perceptually there is very, very little to see. But trust me, our subconscious, our brain recognizes that, knows that there is a texture, because if I press play, you'll see there is actually really something going on, right? But it's not so in your face. And this is something that really was, requested by, especially visual effects supervisor who work with Arri Alexa 35. Alexa 35 comes with beautiful texture that are very similar to these, right? But the problem is once you bake them into Alexa on the recording stage, you cannot recreate them for any CGI effects, right? You cannot match the texture. So now you have actually texture that is in line with what Alexa 35's got, in the same level of quality, also applied in a larger dynamic range than that. So there is absolutely no visual error that this texture creates, yet it can be recreated in the post-production, can be matched as well to other sources as well. So this is the big problem we had with Alexa 35 textures. Now, we don't really need to use them in camera. We can use this to regenerate the texture, which is very, very important. Okay? Now I'm going to go and I'm going to basically enable the print grain. And this is very unique. We never had this before. We never before had an option that we were able to blend different textures together. You select a grain, that's your grain. But we are creatives, and we like to have unique, we like to build something that's very specific for the job. And as such, we really want a tool that's going to allow us to build the grain. Okay, so what we do is then we say, well, fine, I want to now blend, let's say, for example, a print grain to it, right? So what I got now is, again, options from ultra fine, all the way to heavy. Okay, so I have a huge, again, range, I'm going to go, let's say, for strong, because I really want you to see this grain. I'm going to enable, disable. And what it really does, again, you see, look at it, how beautifully it blends itself on top of negative grain, and then you get a texture that is much denser, but again, feels much more part of an image. But that's not everything. That's not everything, right? We have, as always, the ability to, adjust, how it behaves over frequencies, okay? But now we introduce something which is called a 3D grain. Okay, so the best way for me to explain to you what 3D grain is this. Look. If I was now to show you, this is my mid-gray, right? This is my grayscale. Okay, so if I go this, so this is just a grayscale with the film grain applied, the standard DaVinci film grain. Okay, and then when I look at my vectorscope, you'll see it has 0 color, no color content, right? But one day I'm going to tell you a story how we've been analyzing and making this grain, and you'll see when we actually used AI tools to really look at the actual film, comparison, what we figured, there is so much color in the grain. Of course it is, because it's embedded in emulsions of cyan, magenta, and yellow. So there is a color, okay? So you see, When I'm now using the 3D grain, right, what I do is I introduce that color that's really there. And not just that, I can control how much of cyan layer, how much of magenta layer I want, and how much of yellow emulsion grain I want. Okay? And the reason why we call it 3D grain is because there is a very thin, like, you know, film has little thickness, right? So when we emulate in this kind of, you know, over that little thickness of 3 layers, and that really like randomness of grain particles over different color emulsion layers is really what generates this effect. And it reacts, of course, it reacts to your content, right? So what we do now is we're going to say, okay, go to the 3D mix, and I'm going to now look what's going to happen now with my waveform monitor. I'm going to enable a 3D grain. Look at it. Unbelievable, right? And you see here, like in a standard film grain, there isn't any really color content available to you, right? Nothing really happens. But yet with Grain Lab is this gorgeous roundness, you know, this kind of spread of color, which ultimately leads to the fact that your grain blends better with your image, that it less feels, hey, I have just like, you know, look, so this is your grain, that's the film grain, and this is your you know, Grain Lab. Look at the difference. You see how here the grain is just much more, you know, ingrained in a picture, feels like a part of an image rather than, you know, somehow just a layer that kind of, you know, sits on top of it, right? And the text, and by the way, everything's working fully real time. This has been optimized to the maximum, right? I mean, as long as you kind of, you know, look, you know, you can, on a good laptop, you're going to be able to get 4K real time. HD definitely no problem. And by the way, this grain is going to be available for Baselight, and it's going to be available for Nuke as well, and it's going to be available for Nucoda, for other color grading systems. I can't actually wait to tell you who's already using this grain. Once the project is out, you'll be surprised to hear, like, you know, how well received this texture tool is already in the industry. Okay. And then what we have on the top of it is we have a flicker and weaver, but nothing like, you know, the generic stuff that you see. This was actually a tracked flicker and weaver from actual film. So you'll probably find that it's very subtle. You're going to go like, really, is there like a flicker and weaver? But actually, if I show you in a waveform monitor, you'll see that actually there is like a little flickering going on. You see there is like a very tiny, but this is really what film looks like. You know, there isn't really this kind of, you know, movement, you know, the mechanical, you know, film has like a very, very, you know, small amount of flicker and weave that, you know, you can use. You can also, by the way, you know, just include, like, you can say, well, give me like a little bit more flicker amount, you know, like this. So then it's like a little bit stronger. So you can control it as well. You have ability to do this, or you can just switch it off because I don't want it to look like film. I just want to give my film a texture, and I don't care for it to look exactly like you know, as if it's shot on film. Okay, so this is also a wonderful addition. You know, it can't break your image. You know, we really made it so that, you know, it's there to benefit the image. There's not just some sort of flicker that at one moment is gonna, you know, give you technical failures and stuff like this. So it's very, very, very good, interesting. Okay, then I'm gonna go for the next one, which is a Halo Lab. Okay, now halation's been around forever. You know, we had so many different halation options. And here, for example, what I got is I have a halation effect from DaVinci Resolve, right? So again, I went just to, you know, standard conversion, then I went for halation. I selected that my color space is 709, and I'm just using like a pretty much the standard setting, right? And you can tell, yes, it's there, right? Actually, you can even view the glow alone. But one thing I always found about DaVinci's halation is that it's very hard to really get it to look right. I mean, it's okay as a gimmick, but once you sit with a cinematographer who spent their lifetime shooting on film, and you tell them, oh, I can emulate halation, they laugh at this. You know, they go like, what are you talking about? You know, this is not a halation. You know, that's not what a halation looks like. You know, get rid of it, right? So you know, it's great for some projects where we are like kind of gimmicking like a little halation effect. But really, 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 guys, when you start working, and I hopefully all of you are going to be working with people who have shot on film and have huge amount of experience. They will look at this and they will tell you that's not really what halation does. They will tell you this very quickly, right? So we had to come up with something that they would like, and we had a wonderful halation that is originally developed by Tim Montoya, and we love it, and it had this kind of, thing, but now, with help of Josh Pines and, with a lot of testing and my inputs as well, and we kind of came to a new version of halation, okay? And what's really, really interesting about this halation now is, I'm just going to go and again disable everything so that you can see what's happening, is first of all, it doesn't have to sit anymore as the first node like we used to do it. It's not that necessary. Why is this important? Well, look, I'm going to now enable halation, okay? And you'll see that straight away that the effect that we create is just so nicely blended. Especially what we love is this fogging, which is really like what halation loves. Look what it does to the skin. Look at the kind of, how the skin beautifully reacts on halation, right? Absolutely beautiful, right? And you can also control it. And what's really interesting, look at this. I can then whack my halation to maximum, but it will never clip. It rounds off. It rolls off, right? Which is what really happens with film. Film never clips, right? It always rolls off. So we finally got that. And what's really cool about it is now you can put your halation and you can continue grading and just adjusting your image, and halation will adapt to your grading. So it's not like, oh, I have a halation, then whatever I grade. No, halation now is really responding to your grade, to how bright or dark you want to set your highlights, for example, right? Which is so important. It's so important. So it's kind of, you set it and you forget it. You don't have to go and always check what's happening with my levels. Is this shot underexposed or exposed? Where's my halation? Blah, 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 right? It's beautiful. It's much faster way of working. And not just that, it's much more beautiful way of working as well, okay? So next thing then we added to it is the diffusion controls. All of you love, this plugin called Scatter. And you were like, oh my God, I love Scatter. So we said, okay, fine, we'll give you Scatter. But we actually went and we analyzed the Tiffin filters. We understood the philosophy behind the filters a little bit, and we managed to get to a very, very accurate physical emulation of diffusion filters. So you have basically several options, right? Let me just show you what they are. So there is an option called haze, okay, which is basically like a, you could say like a, I don't know exactly the name of the filters. We'll go through it. Then we have a bloom. Bloom is wonderful because it's actually more in the shadow. Bloom like really works beautifully in the shadow. You see how the bloom actually moves more my shadows, right? So it's not so much in the highlight, right? It has like a little highlight, but it really works well on a kind of the dark part. Or you have a mist, right? And you can also do like a little mist, right? I'm going to go now and just put a haze, like for example, just a little bit. And you see, now let me show you. So basically, look, I'm just going to show you like this is, now look at this. This is again, only halation, nothing else. Off, on, off, on. It just gives this beautiful softness that it's sometimes necessary. But the problem is if you put that filter on set and you only have a small monitors to decide whether it's good or not, and you come back to grade and you go like, my God, that filter's too much. We can't undo it. And that, trust me, that happens. We had it where we just go like, oh man, the filter's a little too strong. You don't have to do this anymore. Now we can do this in a post incredibly well. We can actually really work with it. And then what you do as well, you can then decide, how much of all of this, you really want. You can say how much of halation, diffusion you want, right? How much of that effect you want. You can fine tune it, how much of, halation you want and so on. You have a full control over every little parameter, Absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So now we have like, but again, let me just actually wanted to show you the difference. So there is like basically the Halo Lab, and this is your halation, DaVinci halation. Halo Lab, DaVinci halation. Halo Lab, DaVinci halation. I don't want to knock off DaVinci. I love DaVinci. I love everything they do. I'm just saying that what we were doing is we were basically taking the, some of the stuff that it's already available and improving it for those who appreciate. There are some people that don't care. Some people say, oh, that's wonderful. Why do I need a plugin? Great. Nobody's saying you should use it. But there are colorists out there who want to they want to get better results than everybody else. They feel that they have to, improve with every job. And they will certainly appreciate this. And these are the people with whom we've been working and developing, getting their feedback and understanding to how good we're working. By the way, all of this, again, plays perfectly in real time, no problem at all. Okay, next thing then. What we have is we have a print lab. Let me show you print lab. Okay, print lab is, again, I can't really compare it with anything at the moment, because, in honesty, this is nothing else but, let's say, a 3D LUT. Any 3D lookup table that you basically go and take is actually going to be a print lab. But there is a challenge we had and why we introduced it, right? So let me just explain to you what happens. When you actually start working with such a high dynamic range of 12 stops above mid-gray, so this is almost 18 stops in total, right? You can't really use existing, well, you can, but, the precision of existing film emulation profiles is not quite there. I mean, it's there, but you know that you're losing some detail in the highlight, and the shadow roll-off is slightly different. Well, simply because the film itself rarely would have that amount of dynamic range in it. So when you're scanning and profiling, you usually don't get, the full thing. But we can kind of estimate. We can kind of figure out, if we were to adapt, this kind of, stops, and we're going to use. So what we did is we went and we said, okay, we need a higher precision. So what we did is we introduced a new LUT format called Master LUT that is 128 points. So, most of your LUTs are 33 points. We love 65-point LUTs, right? And right now, you can't even use 128 points LUTs in DaVinci. There isn't really a way for you to play it back. But now, so we created a plugin that can actually use that precision, okay? And actually, I'm going to start with the negative stock. Okay, so it's 128 point, and it's working in JPlog2, right? So it's working in 18 stops really of dynamic range that we cover more than anything else. And so it has an incredible amount of precision that we haven't had before. Okay. So, and you know what, we make it very simple. There is like a one, which is just a, Vision 3 stock, right? And look at it, just if I apply this Vision 3 stock, it's nothing, like a revolutionary happening, but look at that gorgeous roll-off in a highlight, like look at this kind of skin response, It's just, you know what, you just kind of put it and you forget it. Like it's just there, doing its job. Or we included the Kodak 2383, the standard print, very freshly, analyzed and measured. And I mean, look at this. Look at this, beauty of that kind of film print emulation. And but also you'll notice, you still have this huge amount of detail in the shadow. Look at your highlight detail. It's all there because the whole, mapping, on 18 stops is just, and the ability for us to assign enough points of the LUT, to the 50 code values of every stop, it just kind of, has certain benefits. What is going to happen with this is we're going to include more, release more master LUTs. You're going to be able to load them. They will be encrypted. That means you will have to have a code or license to open them. And you're also going to be able to create your own master LUTs and also protect them with encryption so that not anybody can take and copy. Like now you make an amazing LUT. You spend years working and then somebody just copies it and uses it and, sells it or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're going to now limit a little bit one's ability to kind of, use these LUTs freely. We want to actually, give you some sort of control if you have spent a lot of time and effort in developing certain profiles that, they become, somehow protected. Not perfect. You cannot, protect any look, to be honest. But at least, you know, for those who are honest, you know, for those people, it will be actually, you know, pretty good. Okay. So now I've made you an overview of all of these effects, but now you're probably the first question that I always get asked, how should we put it together? And the answer to that is, well, you know, there is more than one way. What I'm going to show you now is one of the ways how I, you know, been using it. There is certainly, you know, I encourage you to do more experimentation with it. So what I got here again is just have this standard, you know, shot with a color space transform just for the comparison. And then I'm going to start with like a simple node tree. Okay. So my first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to always open with an INODE. Okay. Because, you know, this is your, you know, main camera. So I'm going to say, here's my black magic. Okay. And then I'm always going to close with an ONODE. And by the way, this can also be on the timeline level. I don't have to put it like this. So I'm just going to make this so that you see INODE. And I'm going to go and make this one work as an ONODE, right? And I don't want to work with the ACES one. I'll stick to Arilog C4. I quite like that. So basically, let's go and say ONODE, okay? And then I have a little primary here that I adjusted straight away, right? Just a little bit, you know, brought it down a little bit, just a little saturation. So, right. Okay, so the next thing that happens, if you think about it, if you think about image capture, right, process, the light hits the lens first. So the lens, you know, should be really the first one that would happen. So I'm going to go and apply a little lens slab, okay? I will, you know, enable my modulation transfer function because I really like this, you know, and I'm going to go and give it, let's say, a warm tint, or no, what was it? The green one I liked on this shot. Yeah, green tint. And I'm going to use like a vintage 24 millimeter lens, right? So that's basically kind of my you know, just like a, oh no, let me actually go anamorphic because it's more visible. So like that. Okay, let's do that. All right. And yes, I want to add a little vignette. I want to bring some of the vignette in so that you get that as well. So far what we did is not really grading. I mean, we are grading, but we're not really doing a lot. We're just basically using just the lens so far. Okay, so, you know, and we're really like, oh my God, this is actually not too bad, right? All right, then I have this node that I just use as a connector. And then I have a parallel node. Why? Why parallel? Well, first of all, because I can. You know, I was never able to use parallel node for these effects previously because they were in plugins that are stacked one after another. But if you think about it, what happens, the light hits, let's say, film emulsion, right? And three things happen. The first thing that happens, there is a certain response in terms of the color. So let's start with that. So first I'm going to go and say, this is my print profile. And let me actually go and make it, let me make it 2383, for example. All right? So that's the first thing that happens. But at the same time, not afterwards, at the same time, you know, because think about it, the light hits a film emulsion, and at the same time, there is more than one thing happening. So by making it parallel, right, I can emulate that. So I'm always using the same source. I'm not like applying effect on top of the print, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and say, okay, give me now the grain, okay? Because, you know, that's kind of, again, the inherent part or of the process. I'm going to use like a oversampled 35 millimeter, and I'm going to use here a strong, you know, texture, make sure that I'm in 3D, yeah, that's fine. And I'm going to go and increase a little bit its intensity, so just that you guys can also see a little bit what's happening, right? So that I can also show you a little bit what it is. But look what's beautiful about it. I'm now in parallel mode, right? So it's kind of blending itself together with the print profile. Really, really nice. It's not like a sitting on top of it. And then here comes one of the biggest, you know, questions we always ask ourselves. Well, when I do halation, do I do halation before the... No, you do halation at the same time. Yeah, because halation happens on film, not on top of the grain, but happens at the same time. So you want to blend halation, right? So what you do is you just take, okay, I want to now blend my halo, right? I really want to do that. So what I did now is I'm going to go and say, okay, I'm going to go and just increase a little bit of that. I want to also apply a little diffusion on it as well. Like, so let's say a little bit diffusion like this. Okay, so check this out. Check this out. So I'm going to go and show you. This is now a profile, everything together. right? So I have the IONODEs, I have a print profile, I have a blend of color, grain, and halation together, put together, and then output using beautiful ARRI, tonal mapping. And here is what I get today. Colourpro, standard output, just like when I use the DaVinci wide gamut color management. The choice is yours. There are some projects, certainly, where this is going to be better, and there's going to be some projects where clients will say, you know what, this is just absolutely, what I'm looking for. And you know what, I wasn't able to shoot on film, but I don't even care about it, because if I want something to look better than film, I need to have a little bit more control in post-production. We have client at the moment who has working on project that has so much money that they could have shot on anything they wanted, on IMAX if they wanted, and they even tested it. But the practicality of shooting on film, laboratory processing and everything, sometimes it's not there. Sometimes cinematographer wants to see what they're shooting on set, and with film camera that's very difficult. But knowing that they have the power to do this to an image in post-production is what gives them the freedom to choose whether they want to shoot digital or film. Now, we're not really trying to emulate film here. This is not, I know it looks like it. And I'm sorry that I'm kind of, trying to tell you I'm emulating film. No, I'm just trying to build a look with enough texture, with enough feeling, with enough soul to give my client what they're really going for. They don't want to have digital looking image like this. They want image that feels more, I'm going to use term real, but what is real, right? And this is basically, an quick overview. I have never managed to do this quicker, by the way. Every time I'm showing these plugins, it takes me hours. This is the fastest I ever did it in just under an hour. And I'm super happy now to basically, take some questions. So let me have a look what's happening in the chat. Very good. Khalif loves it. Luis loves it. I love it. I love it. So tell me, guys, if you have any questions, just go and type in a chat. I'm here, gonna be here, and then be able to answer it. Where do you use look design in your node tree, after print lab, or do you use look design as sprint? Very good question. So normally what I would do is I would then put it after the lens. So maybe I could put it here. So what I would do probably, I would take these nodes, okay, and I would put them on my timeline level, right? Because usually they kind of stay consistent. This is your output, right, of all of these things. And then I would put Look Designer and on my regular place, but I could do it, after the lens normally, because I try to kind of, put lens as early as possible, but I always put lens after the CDL, because the way how these plugins are built is that they respond to your grading, right? So they're not like a static. If you start doing some grading, then the plugins also adjust their output to what you're doing. So I really like to kind of have my CDL in front, my main grade, and then I'm adding basically, all the processing and all the effects. And by the way, the new Look Designer, you have to have this version 3.02 with the CP at the end. This version is now supporting JPlog 2, so you can work in the same pipeline, basically, yeah. Does it work with material already recorded in Rec 709? Absolutely. So what you do is you go here, INODE, and then you come here, and then you say, hey, I want to work in Rec 709, right? And there you go, Rec 709. You can even go sRGB, right? You can say, let's say I want to work with sRGB images. Well, it's not going to look good because I already graded for the, Blackmagic. But yes, it anything supported. And by the way, it took a long time for us to get that 709 to really work, because there is a lot of math that needs to happen to take 6 stops of dynamic range and stretch them to 18. As you can imagine, it's not quite easy to do that. So yeah, thank you, Luis. Thank you. Thank you, Tanyu. I love it that you guys dig it. You know, how different is print left emulation to look designer print emulation? Well, it's different, Lorenzo, because it has a higher precision. Look designers profiles are still, you know, not really adapted, you know, to full, and I don't think they will ever be, you know, because it's a huge amount of processing power necessary to play back 128 point LUT. Okay. Yeah, they're different. They're definitely different. So the way how I'm envisioning you will be working, Lorenzo, is that you will build your look in Look Designer and then be able to export it as a master LUT and then use that master LUT in your pipeline, right? So that's the workflow we're going towards, that you basically will use Look Designer to build your master LUT, export it at a higher precision, load it into the, you know, print lab, and then that print lab is going to do all the work, where, you know, the Look Designer is going to be for the creative part, and you know, the print lab is going to be for actual playback, right? Any integration between these and Colorlab AI Creator? No, not at the moment, but the Colorlab AI Pro that is coming in September will have all this color science. This is going to be the major difference between Colorlab AI Creator and Colorlab AI Pro is going to be this color science, right? So you will be able to integrate this workflow. And by the way, we are planning to add all of these plugins as a part of XO1 metadata, so you will be able to exchange it. That these plugins are coming, as I said, for Baselight, for Nuke, and for Nucoda. So, you know, you are really going to be able to work, you know, on productions and manage your texture and all this effect, because, you know, you can just save an XO1, give it to effects supervisor, they load this effect in Nuke, and they have the same textures as you do. So that's the plan. And yes, the AI Pro, Colorlab AI Pro, will be part of it. Does it work on Linux? Absolutely. It was first working on Linux. So this is the first plugins we developed on Linux first. However, we don't have the public download available. So if you need it, you have to get in touch, and then we will you know, provide you with an installer. Do you use PrintLab as both negative print and different points in pipeline? I could, but I found it to be too much. So, you know, I just find that there's too much, you know. You would have to, or like if you use it just a smaller amounts, like blend it a little bit. So don't, like, you know, whack it like, you know, like I did now, like, okay, I did 50%, right? But you kind of, you know, like try to blend the amount of those two. You can totally do it. You can do it, you know. But I personally, you know, really see kind of this as an overall kind of, you know, blend, kind of, you know, rather than you know. So one day when you can actually create your own master LUTs, you will be able to blend those yourself. What I would probably do rather is I would put the Look Designer to do negative, and a print lab to do an overall print. That would be probably the better way to do it, Darren. Anarindra, thank you. That I love that you love it. Dirk, what happens with the size of the grain when you change your timeline resolution shape from HD to UHD? So the grain is not bigger than 4K, Dirk. This is maximum we can create because of the real-time playback. Okay, so what will happen is that basically it will just adapt itself to your, you know, frame size effectively, and it will, you know, fill the frame up to 4K. This is the maximum we can do right now, I'm afraid, in terms of the real-time playback. But Dirk, you please, you know, you're the master of these things. I would love you to get hands at this and you start, you know, playing with it, and let me know. You know, I would love to get your feedback and you know, hear whether you have any ideas, whether we could improve it even more. So please feel free just to reach out, and I'll help you with the license. I'd love you to start using it. Raphael says, it's really easy to use. Yes, you see, you know what? I was always going back and saying, we have too many controls. We have too many controls. How can we reduce the amount of controls? I hate to, I hate to open like something, and there is like 1 zillion sliders. It scares me. I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? There is so many options. I hate that. So really, we were like just removing all the unnecessary stuff and doing it so that it adjusts itself in the background. We can automate so many little settings. So yeah, so basically, I mean, look at just even the color management is one setting. But we decide whether you need gamut mapping, whether you need this, that, everything's been decided for you. So, it's very easy. And you know what? What's most important, you can't make a mistake. That's the thing. You're not making any mistakes. Maurice has a question. Is Colourpro and JPlog color space aware? No, it's not, because it's not supported, but we are open to licensing it to other manufacturers. We just released it, so when it happens, but let me just show you what I do with color management. I just say we are working DaVinci YRGB. My timeline color space is AP1, which is really what it is. And then I use as a gamma ACCCT. Now we don't have that gamma curve, but it's kind of closest to it. You just need like a curve, and then it won't be like a super perfect, like accurate when you linearize stuff as well. I would recommend you use our tool. ONODE can linearize for you if you ever need to do that. And then what I did for my screen, I just use sRGB because that's my screen, but that's all I do. Thank you, Peter. I love it. I love it. Where is the link to the store? So just go to colorlab.ai, click on the link products, or at the top we're going to see there is now a big banner that says Colourpro, and just get yourself. At the moment is on discount. The plugins are something over 30% discounted. And if you are look designer user, you're going to get an email with a $200 voucher towards upgrade towards these plugins. So basically, you can then keep both. You can have your look designer and you can have Colourpro, and you have a value of $200 towards these plugins. Question, what should your, okay, so I just answered that. Yes, excellent. What do you set in delivery page if you're using RC4 in the ONODE? Michael, I don't care what I set. I only set 709 and 2.4 gamma. Basically, that's all. I don't need to, whether I'm using Arilog C, Reveal, or it doesn't matter. What it matters is that I'm outputting SDR color space. That's really what it matters. And I'm just using different tonal mapping to get to that result. So you'll be absolutely fine just to select it. Will Colourpro and all these plugins be... no, the ColorLab Pro is going to have this color science, okay, but not all of the plugins. Yes, not yet, Peter. And I will explain in another video why this is not possible at the moment. But you will be able to combine them, so you will be able to use, Colourlab Pro and plugins together, but, there is a little bit problem, the way, because we can't control plugins when we push back to Resolve. Not yet. So we can't integrate it into Colourlab Pro. Okay, but you will be able to, get, the same plugins inside the Colourlab Pro, but moving them is going to have to be like an interesting exercise. So I'll let you know how we're going to do that. There are some changes in look designer, something about saturation, slider blend for opacity or so on. Yes, so basically the look designer primarily upgrades are in fixing some of the profiles, adding more profiles and stuff like this. But in terms of the underlining math, everything has stayed the same. Nicholas, do you feel adding negative green printing makes a difference? Is it worth hit? No, there is absolutely zero performance hit, by the way, Nicholas, because these textures, how they say, we don't do processing twice. We do processing once. So, our image processing engine blends, right? And then applies it to the same frame. So it's not like a, how they say, it's not like a amount of processing as if I would do one grain and then second grain. So I have two grains that are blending. When you build an effect, you have an image processing engine that does the heavy lifting and then just applies that to a frame. So on the playback side, we don't really slow down. Okay, so it's only a single texture that gets applied ultimately. So there is no performance issue in that. Maybe like 1 or 2 frames, just because, you know, there's more cycles we have to do, but apart from that, not a lot. The bottom half of the node tree would be on the timeline side. Yes, probably that's what I would do. But Peter, as I said, this is very new. This is, you know, still for us to explore, to understand, you know, how best we're going to use it. But this is how I would use it right now. And I'm not saying that it's going to stay like this. I actually believe that many colorists will have their own interesting ways how to do it. And I really am looking forward to discovering those. So don't use it as a book of rules. I would suggest, you know, be open-minded, experiment, find what you can do, and, you know, use them to your benefit, because, you know, this is why we made them modular. We made them so that you can put them on different points and try this, try that, blend this, blend that. That's the whole idea. That's the half of the fun, right? So yeah. Question, is it ready for Resolve 19? Of course, it works absolutely fine on 19, Morris. So no problem. You'll be able to use it. No problem, Tunde. It's been our pleasure, you know, and I'm only sorry that it took us this long. You know, it's just really, you have to understand the amount of research, amount of testing. I will actually make a video once, and I will explain to you what it necessary to happen, you know, how much research we did, and how AI actually in an interesting way has helped us to understand how best to build these tools. It's really interesting, you know. Yeah, and they don't use any AI itself. There is no neural engine running in the background. But in order for us to understand what really happens with all these effects, we've been using AI. And it's a really interesting subject. I actually, you know, in one of the future streams, I'm going to go and talk about it. Yeah. Thank you, Caliph. I also think that they are going to be wonderful, and they already have been adopted by some very, very, you know, interesting names in the industry. And so yeah, I'm so excited that you guys see that as well. JPlog 2 is beautiful. JPlog 2 is really, really good. I will be at Cinegear on Saturday, not tomorrow, Peter. Yes. Yes, all Look Designer users, as soon as I finish the stream, I'm going to go and send them an email with a code so that they can do the upgrade. No problem at all. By the way, guys, you can also do a trial, you know, as well. You know, you can just download trial plugins, you know, play with them and so on. I know it's a big, you know, purchase. It's not, you know, something you just do, you know, any day on any time, you know, but this is why we also give you monthly option. And for those of you who are like really committed, we have a perpetual license as well. Yes, so you know, I hope that we give you enough flexibility, at least, you know, to when it comes to the purchasing side. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. I really, really appreciate all of you, you know, watching this and being stuck with me. It's just a big subject. I can't make it short. And there's going to be more, you know, on our website, if you go, there is like a short video training tutorials about each one of these, you know, so when you start using it, you can remind us of what they are and how they work. And as I said, we are running a Look Academy where we are going to be like really, you know, learning how to, you know, turn them into some creative output, creative looks as well. So I invite you to go to Color the training site and consider that option. And if you join the Look Academy, you get 50% discount on the plugins, which is significant. So yeah, thank you all. I'm looking forward to the next stream. And yeah, give me thumbs up if you liked what you see. Thank you. Take care, everybody. See you soon. See you. Thank you. Bye.